Hello, and welcome back to the Verlicity AI podcast. I'm Cristian Worthington, co-founder of Verlicity AI, a lifelong entrepreneur who's launched multiple SaaS companies. Recently, I found myself asking a new question: how can I adapt to AI fast enough to stay ahead?
And I'm Sandra Giffin, lawyer, IP specialist, corporate governance guru, and also a co-founder here at Verlicity AI. Like Chris, I've run startups for most of my career, but I've never seen anything shake up the status quo quite like AI. Even as a legal professional, I'm finding I have to adapt how I draft contracts, how I do research, pretty much everything.
Today's episode takes a personal turn. We're sharing how we each found ourselves adapting to AI, each in our own domains. Sandra writing a legal contract, and me writing the script for this very podcast. We're going to basically debrief each other on experiences we've had collaborating with AI, so we can have shared context for the takeaways we'll be discussing near the end. And along the way, we'll briefly be revisiting one of the most famous AI versus human moments in history in 1997, the Deep Blue chess match with Garry Kasparov.
Yes. We sometimes call Kasparov the Neil Armstrong of AI because he was humanity's greatest chess player stepping onto a new frontier, only to be overshadowed by an AI. But, and this is crucial, Kasparov didn't just walk away beaten. He later championed the idea of human-machine collaboration, which ties directly into how we at Verlicity AI see humans plus AI as the future.
And as always, we're also going to provide you with some tangible advice on how you can adapt and leverage AI in this new economy, because at Verlicity AI, we're always focused on solutions.
So get ready for a mix of personal experiences, historical anecdotes, and practical insights and solutions. Let's start by sharing our own stories, how each of us found ourselves adapting to AI in ways we never expected.
So, let's get personal. As a software developer, I've written a lot over the years: patent filings, manuals, pitch decks, product specs, marketing materials, you name it. Technical writing is a necessary evil that most software developers don't like doing. But I never thought I would be writing scripts for a bi-weekly podcast. And I never thought I'd be leaning heavily on AI to help me write those podcast episodes. I'm sure it won't surprise you that all of our podcast episodes are written in collaboration with an AI. We use ChatGPT and Gemini to brainstorm topic outlines, refine transitions, suggest references, and even write drafts of whole segments of the podcast. And we've begun to use DeepSeek as well.
That's a big shift, right? Because historically, you'd just lock yourself in a room for a few hours, come out with a document, and revise it manually.
Exactly. Now I found myself inputting a relatively detailed prompt into ChatGPT or Gemini, letting it write the first draft. I'm reminded of the Anne Lamott line. She's widely credited with popularizing the term shitty first draft in her influential book on writing, Bird by Bird, Some Instructions on Writing and Life, in 1995.
I'm not sure the listeners needed to know that detail about Anne Lamott, but hey, it's a brave new world.
Yeah, that's a good example of how AI can cause you to overcook your dialogue and include details that really don't add to the arc of the story you're trying to tell. But in this case, it's AI art imitating life. But I have to say, the AI really helps with the dreaded blank page. For centuries, writers have stared at blank pages, struggling to get those first words on paper. The AI gets the ball rolling at light speed. In what used to take me 1 or 2 hours, I can now do in 1 or 2 minutes with better flow and fewer rough edges.
That's a prime example of the concept from human plus machine, the synergy that can happen when people and AI collaborate. But how did you feel about the ownership of the final product? Did you worry about the who wrote it question?
I did at first. There was a moment where I thought, wait, am I letting AI do too much? But I realized the core ideas, the personal anecdotes, the brand voice, those all come from me. The AI is more like a sparring partner or a pair writer, if you will. I still do final edits to ensure it's truly my voice. Also, I find the process is much harder than just keying a prompt and letting the AI spit out a finished work.
So, tell me more about your process.
Well, when you generate the first draft, it has no soul. It has a lot of good stuff, but you can just feel that it's not coming from a human. I'm reminded of the U.S. Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart in his concurring opinion in 1964 on pornography when he said, I know it when I see it. Sometimes it's little things like the fact that when you tell ChatGPT to write a script for a podcast episode, it uses certain words every time. I noticed this phenomenon with Google's Notebook LM product too. They both use the phrase deep dive every time.
Yeah. Now, when I hear phrases like deep dive or buckle up, I can't help but suspect the writer has overly relied on AI. I was watching a news story today and the reporter said the words deep dive, and I wondered if her editor knew she probably didn't write that line. Did you find anything else?
As you know, Sandra, we use AI in every aspect of our podcast production. Even the intro music and artwork for the episodes was produced by AI. But we've taken things further. We've cloned our voices. We use text-to-speech conversion to output these voices for our podcast. To be clear, we've carefully produced the script, and these are very good clones of our voices. So in every respect, we are producing this podcast.
Yes. It's been a huge productivity tool for us. It allows us to focus on writing what we hope our listeners will appreciate as a really informative script, without getting bogged down with recording the podcast and post-production of the audio. We're 100% focused on providing the best information we can.
Yeah, but it comes at a cost. Anyone who knows us will tell you that the voices you're hearing now sound exactly like our own, but we like to think we can be funny from time to time. Only the AI's text-to-speech conversion does a really awful job of simulating laughter.
Ha ha ha. Okay, that's not how I laugh. That was Robo-Sandra laughing.
No offense, but that was a little disturbing. Insert robo-laughter here. But on a positive note, you can use a tagging system called SSML, or Speech Synthesis Markup Language, to tag your script so you can inject changes in pace and emphasis. We use ChatGPT to insert these SSML tags into the script, and it works relatively well. Though I find 11 Labs, the text-to-speech tool we use, sometimes seems to ignore the tags.
That's true. And sometimes I feel the cadence of sentences can be bizarre, but it beats having to record the episodes live, which can be exhausting. It also lets us record episodes when we're on the road and don't have access to our studio.
The AI also has made me American when I'm Canadian. The model of my voice it creates when it clones my voice sounds like me, but it sounds like me pronouncing words the way an American would say them. For example, the word Byzantine or pronunciation. The AI even has me pronouncing the last letter in the alphabet as a Z instead of Z, which is the Canadian pronunciation. So when you're creating with AI, it's important to keep in mind that the models are trained on data that can bias the results. The AI is like a sophisticated voting machine. If most of the English language audio content in the world comes from the US, the pronunciation Z outvotes the pronunciation Z. Also, the AI system can be influenced by hidden prompts that the service provider embeds into the system. These are called system prompts. These system prompts help the AI know things like today's date and a lot of other useful information, but they can also influence the way the AI responds in unexpected ways. This whole problem reminds me of the British physicist Stephen Hawking, who the world remembers speaking with an American accent because the voice synthesizer he used was made in the United States.
Yes, this is also a problem for people creating text with AI. The AI models are essentially guessing machines. They predict the next word in a sentence based on the AI's training. Since the models are trained in the US, they spell everything in American English, which means that the word COLOUR in British English will always be spelled COLOR, regardless if the author is British or American.
The other big limitation of using AI to assist in the script writing process is that it doesn't know anything about my experiences and how they made me feel. A lot of the dialogue you've been listening to in this segment of this episode was not written by the AI, because the AI doesn't know how I feel about its performance.
On some level, I find that comforting. IRL me would probably laugh after that line.
Sorry, no laughter allowed at Verlicity AI. And the tendency AI has to follow a formula can become a problem if you're trying to distinguish your writing from other people's work. Bottom line, the AI is terrific for populating the blank page with a crappy first draft, but it definitely needs a lot of editing. And you really need to inject your personality and experience into the work.
Did you have a preference for one model over another?
I actually use ChatGPT, Gemini, and DeepSeek in my writing process. I find they each answer questions differently, and they give me a bigger variety of options. Sometimes I'll produce a segment of my script in one model, copy the script into a chat on another model, and ask it to offer constructive criticism. And I often check key facts, like dates and amounts, using Google. In this script, ChatGPT got the dates of the Kasparov chess match wrong and the publication date of the Anne Lamott book wrong. In each case, it was 1 year off.
That's something that I've noticed too. The AI service providers obviously tune their models differently, so it's helpful to check one model's result against the other. The hallucinations on the dates are a bit disturbing. You'd think that would be an easy problem to fix. Did you find any other advantages to using AI as your writing partner?
Oh yes, I'd never written dialogue before, and I must say that it was hugely helpful in helping me build the structure for the podcast. And I was able to use the AI to drill down into segments of the podcast and explore aspects of the story more deeply by asking it to suggest improvements and assist in our research. I also found it useful to have two different models running concurrently. I usually use ChatGPT's O1 model for the script and Gemini's 2.0 model for additional research, and to check that ChatGPT isn't hallucinating when it gives me a reference or a critical fact. And I use DeepSeek to critique the final result and provide suggestions for improvements. It's an iterative process, and it involves a lot of my own experiences and research too. Without AI, I don't think I would have had the time or talent to write podcast scripts.
That's a world of difference from the work I do as a lawyer. In the law, originality isn't generally a good thing. I'm less concerned about duplicating another author's language or injecting humor, as I am about missing an important detail or misstating something that will later be a problem in court. So let's jump to my story. I had a similarly eye-opening experience in a completely different way. I've been drafting contracts for ages. It's second nature to me. Normally, we lawyers start with precedents, contracts that we've written or someone else has written in the past. And we do research on the relevant law in cases when we're in uncharted or unfamiliar territory. I decided to use the AI to do the preliminary legal research and generate the initial draft. My first instinct was, no way, this is risky. Lawyers need nuance and precise language. We need battle-tested precedents that have stood the test of time. This was terrifying. To be clear, we still need these things, as you'll soon discover.
And the fear is that AI might just spit out boilerplate text that either misses context or includes outdated references or is just wrong. Did that happen?
Yes. The first few tries, the AI wrote stuff that was too generic, like standard disclaimers that were not relevant. But after I tuned the prompts with specific context, it started generating surprisingly relevant clauses. In this case, I was working on a type of agreement that I had not dealt with before. It was particularly good at getting me oriented in this new area of the law. It created a good framework for me to get started.
So, in a way, the shitty first draft in this case was like my experience with writing dialogue. I wasn't accustomed to writing dialogue, so the AI got me oriented in the genre of writing. In your case, it helped you with a type of agreement you hadn't done before. The AI seems to be acting as an ambassador that takes you, with your capabilities, to a new land.
Yes. And this is a very important point. Having years of experience and training as a lawyer, I was able to spot the problems and write prompts to fill in the gaps where the AI had made errors. Having your own capabilities is essential. Someone without legal experience could easily get a result from an AI and not know what was good and what was bad. And obviously, the AI only knew the details I provided, so sometimes it made assumptions I later had to correct.
So this was similar to the creative writing experience, where the AI couldn't know my life experience. There's a strong onus on the user to be clear and provide detail.
Yes. So I spent a significant amount of time customizing my prompts further, ensuring the result was relevant to the fact situation and was compliant with local laws. This is not a set and forget experience, and even when we get artificial general intelligence or superintelligence, there is no doubt that we humans will still need to be the drivers in this process. Ultimately, as a user in this case, I had to be very clear on what I wanted. Someone without legal training wouldn't know what they wanted and wouldn't be able to judge whether the result was appropriate or not.
So it's more like a contract drafting assistant, not a replacement for your legal expertise.
Exactly. The human oversight is non-negotiable. I still have to verify case references and double-check the language. But now I can handle routine tasks faster, leaving me time to focus on higher-level strategy, like how the contract shapes the partnership or manages IP rights. That's the real value lawyers bring, right? And I want to draw attention to one aspect that caught me by surprise. In a normal contract drafting process, you would front-end load the development of your strategy. Writing a contract is so time-consuming that you really want to have a clear goal and strategy in mind before you start to draft the agreement. With the AI, I was able to spitball strategies and come up with variations of the agreement based on different legal theories. This would have been prohibitively costly if I did it manually, but the AI allowed me to try very different strategies and see how all the pieces would fit together.
In the software field, we sometimes use the term prototyping and protocycling to refer to the idea that you build a rough prototype and then iteratively cycle through refinements. So you're saying that you can bring this type of development process to legal contracts?
Yes. And this is not a small thing. The ability to model different approaches with the level of detail possible with the AI makes it possible to explore avenues you probably would never explore otherwise. It results in a far better final product. I think that a lot of knowledge workers land on a final product because they run out of steam. But the AI lowers the cost of generating prototypes to nearly zero, so you can be incredibly picky about the final product.
Did you make any other observations on this journey?
Lawyers and software developers have something else in common. While we're experts in our own domains, our work pushes us to work in areas where we're not experts. A software developer isn't necessarily an expert in the application for which the software is being written, and a lawyer's work often extends to situations that are unfamiliar. For example, I'm not a tax expert, But the AI was able to flag tax consequences of the contract that required further investigation. The AI helped me avoid traps that might otherwise be invisible.
How much time would you say the AI saved?
I would say it saved about 50% of the time, also similar to the time reported by software developers, using models like Anthropic's Claude or Copilot for writing code. But while it saved 50% of the time, I think the product it produced was far superior than the result I would have achieved manually. So it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. It's fair to say that it was 50% faster, and the result was twice as good. So you might say that it was 4 times better.
That's fascinating. So it was 50% less time to produce a product that's 2 times better. Normally, in many domains, faster doesn't equal better.
And I think it altered my relationship with the work. My expertise was being applied at a higher level than if I was writing the agreement manually. I wasn't stuck in the weeds sweating every little word. I was more of a director than an actor in this process.
So true. And that synergy, where AI does the grunt work and the human applies expertise, ties right into the deeper theme of human plus machine collaboration. The whole world is going through this transition at the moment, but there was a moment when mankind met this challenge for the first time. That iconic moment was in 1997.
Yes. Let's talk briefly about Garry Kasparov, arguably the greatest chess player in history. Chess was widely regarded as a perfect application of pure intellect, and it was the sole domain of humans. If you missed it, our last episode was dedicated to Kasparov, because he's kind of our hero at Verlicity AI. We like to call Garry Kasparov the Neil Armstrong of AI, because just as Armstrong represented mankind as the first to land on the moon, Kasparov was mankind's representative in the first epic battle between the best brain humanity could produce against an AI.
Right. It's difficult to overstate the significance of this event. Deep Blue was an IBM supercomputer specialized for chess. When it defeated Kasparov, people freaked out. Some were convinced this signaled the singularity, or the dawn of machine dominance.
Of course, calling it the singularity was a huge stretch. Deep Blue wasn't a general intelligence. It was an extremely sophisticated chess calculator. But symbolically, it felt like humanity's champion had stepped onto the moon of AI competition and lost.
And Kasparov's reaction was fascinating. He was furious at first, suspecting foul play. But eventually he did something that was truly human. He embraced a new viewpoint. The idea that humans and machines could form unbeatable teams. He even developed the concept of advanced chess, where humans and machines play together in teams. He even hosted advanced chess tournaments where anyone could use any software or machine assistance.
Yes, that was a truly remarkable reaction. He could have simply resigned himself to being the last human to be the world's greatest chess player. But instead, he did something quintessentially human. He adapted. Kasparov realized that a blended approach, human strategic insight, plus a machine's computational brute force, can outperform either human or machine alone. He blazed the way for the next evolution of humanity.
So why does Deep Blue still matter today? Because it was the first time a top human in a deeply intellectual pursuit was beaten by an AI. And yet, rather than leading to a man versus machine dystopia, it led to adaptation. It turns out our superpower isn't intelligence, it's adaptability.
That's the ultimate moral. Kasparov's story reminds us that losing to a machine doesn't have to be humiliating. It can open doors to a new level of collaboration. And speaking of collaboration, let's bring in some of the resources that explore these themes in depth. Let's step back and look at how we ended up with better results using AI, and how we had more time for higher level thinking. Chris, you got a major boost in script writing productivity, and I discovered a new, more strategic way of drafting contracts.
Yes, and the question is, what's the takeaway for people listening? For me, the biggest lesson was not to let the AI run wild, but to give it a structured role. The AI produces a first draft, what Anne Lamott would call a shitty first draft. And then I, as the human, refine and add the emotional or experiential core. That synergy gave me better scripts in less time.
Same here in the legal domain. If I wanted the AI to churn out the entire contract, end to end, it'd be a recipe for missing context or misfiring on legal details. Instead, I fed it carefully framed prompts, got a draft, then used my experience to spot errors or customize the final terms. Essentially, I gave the AI the heavy lifting tasks so I could focus on strategy.
That's the pattern. We define the AI's role and keep a human in the loop. It's a process some researchers call the missing middle, where humans handle creativity and judgment while AI tackles repetitive or brute force tasks. I've seen that phrase in a few places, notably the book Human Plus Machine, though the concept certainly resonates with what we're doing.
Right. We're living proof that human plus AI often beats either one alone. And honestly, that's the same conclusion Kasparov reached after losing to Deep Blue. He realized advanced chess was more powerful when humans and machines teamed up. So whether it's writing a podcast script, drafting a contract, or playing a chess match, the basic framework is let the machine handle the volume and speed, let the human handle nuance and intent.
Which means for our listeners, the solution isn't replace yourself with AI or ignore AI. It's blend the two. In practice, that means something like define exactly which parts AI does best. Let's call this the heavy lift and pattern matching. Retain the parts where your knowledge or empathy is crucial. Let's call this the personal touch. Iterate quickly, treating AI as a collaborator, not a finished product. Let the machine do the intellectual grunt work.
Exactly. And this also addresses the fear of losing originality. If your personality or strategy is front and center, the AI's output remains a tool, not a threat. Shall we tackle the next big question? How do we keep an eye on the broader implications without losing sight of these practical solutions?
Yes, that leads us to a more philosophical angle. We're not just saving time or beating a chess champion. AI raises bigger societal issues, like if it can do half our tasks, what does that mean for jobs, for ethics, for the future of human creativity?
Right. It's the same tension I felt in the legal process. This is great for me. But what about a junior associate who'd normally learn drafting by doing that grunt work? Or what if someone uses AI for a contract outside their expertise and inadvertently introduces critical errors? So there's a real need for human oversight and ethical boundaries.
It reminds me of the potential extremes mentioned in Tegmark's book, Life 3.0. While not diving into the entire premise, the takeaway is we can't just blindly rely on AI or fear it. We have to shape how it evolves through responsible usage, constant checks, and clarity on where humans stay in control.
Exactly. And that resonates with Kasparov's broader message. After his initial rage, he realized if you can't beat the machine alone, you partner with it. But you do so wisely. You retain accountability, moral judgment, and the intangible traits AI can't replicate. That's what makes the difference between an AI-driven meltdown and an AI-driven renaissance. Kasparov realized that the success or failure of an AI collaboration depends greatly on the interface between man and machine.
Yes, and from a practical standpoint, the solution is keep your ear to the ground on ethics and policy, and pay close attention to the nature of the interface, because the interface will define how you and society will benefit from the result. If you're adopting AI, watch out for bias, be transparent with clients or users, and respect the datasets you're feeding the model. that caution might keep you out of the bigger societal traps Tegmark warns about.
In other words, adapt but stay aware. From script writing to contract drafting to advanced chess, the human plus AI synergy works best when we see beyond immediate productivity gains. And remember, we're forging a new era in how people and technology interact.
So let's wrap up by extending that viewpoint outward, beyond just personal or moral questions, to the competitive global sphere. That's where we can't ignore the national or international stage.
Yes, that's another question. If Chris and I can harness AI for personal or professional edge, and Kasparov saw the synergy after losing at chess, what happens when entire nations do this? How does that shape the global landscape?
Kai-Fu Lee calls it a race in his book AI Superpowers, basically pointing out that the US and China are going full throttle on AI development. Even though we're focusing on our local experiences and lessons from Kasparov, we're part of that bigger story. If one country leans heavily into AI-human collaboration, it could leapfrog others in innovation, productivity, or even moral leadership.
Right. We see the same synergy principle just scaled up. If a tech giant invests in AI tools that help employees do 50% faster work and produce better results, that might catapult them globally. Or if a government invests in AI-enabled healthcare, it might revolutionize how doctors diagnose illnesses. The flip side, of course, is that misuse or lack of regulation could lead to massive inequalities or unethical surveillance.
So the solution approach we keep returning to, blend AI with human judgment, becomes a kind of best practice at any level, from personal tasks to government policy. It's not about scaring away from AI, but about ensuring humans still guide the big decisions.
Yes. And that synergy can strengthen entire economies or educational systems if done ethically and strategically. Lee's message is that those who adapt fastest stand to gain an edge. And from what we learned personally, adaptation means more than just plugging in an AI. It means reorganizing how you work and building in checks and balances.
Which ties us right back to the experiences we shared at the start. In my case, rewriting content to inject personal touches, Sandra's experience ensuring the legal strategy remains accurate, and Kasparov learning from defeat to propose advanced chess. The AI superpower advantage is real, but it only happens when humans remain in charge.
So, the final word is that the synergy we discovered on a personal scale also applies globally. Whether you're an individual writer or a nation investing in AI, it's all about harnessing machine strengths and human strengths in tandem. Because an AI alone or human alone scenario misses out on the collaborative magic we've all witnessed. But Chris, all this talk about global stakes might leave our listeners wondering, okay, but what do I actually do tomorrow morning?
Right. Let's get tactical. Here's our playbook for making human-AI teamwork work at your desk.
Glad you asked. Based on our experiences and Kasparov's advanced chess philosophy, here's a playbook with 4 battle-tested tactics. 1. Assign clear roles, like a chessboard.
Think of AI as your rook or bishop in a chess game, powerful but limited to specific moves. When writing, I let AI handle structure, research, or for helping me evaluate my work, but I own the voice and narrative arc. Same way Kasparov used Deep Blue for brute force calculations, but kept control of the overall strategy.
In legal work, I treat AI like a paralegal or a junior associate. It drafts clauses and flags risks, but I make judgment calls. If a contract's indemnity section feels too aggressive, that's my call, not the AI's. 2. Embrace the feedback loop. AI isn't a one-shot tool. When drafting, I'll prompt, review, then re-prompt with adjustments, like telling a junior associate, try again, but focus on intellectual property retention this time.
Exactly. Our podcast scripts go through a lot of iterations. Each round, we add more specificity with prompts like, make this transition punchier, or replace the jargon with a car analogy. It's like tuning an instrument mid-performance.
3. Build a bias radar. AI's training data has blind spots. In law, you might catch a clause assuming U.S. jurisdiction, but your client may be in Canada. Always ask, what's the default perspective here, and does it fit my context?
Same with creative work. If ChatGPT keeps suggesting disruptive and innovative for startup pitches, I'll pivot to words that reflect our brand's quieter confidence, like thoughtful or precision engineered.
4. Steal the 10% rule.
Here's my hack. Never let AI write more than 10% of anything without a human edit. Even in research, I'll have Gemini summarize a topic, then manually verify key stats. It keeps you grounded. The AI's like a GPS. It assumes you're driving on the right side of the road. If you're in the UK, you'd better double check.
I do something similar. If an AI draft feels too smooth, I'll intentionally roughen it up, add a blunt clause or two. Clients need to see my fingerprints, not a generic template. Think of AI like a sous chef. It chops the veggies, but you season the dish. Chris, we've sung AI's praises, but let's get real. When does collaboration backfire?
Great question. From our missteps, here are 3 red flags. Red flag 1, you're editing more than creating. If polishing an AI draft takes longer than starting from scratch, kill the process. Sometimes the AI will over-amplify or include information that dilutes the point you're trying to make. Red flag 2, the black box effect.
Lawyers can't afford opacity. If an AI cites a case I can't verify, I shut it down. Same for creatives. If you don't understand why the AI chooses a metaphor, you risk sounding inauthentic.
Red flag 3, losing the why. Kasparov's genius wasn't just calculating moves, it was his passion for the game. If using AI makes your work feel detached or joyless, recalibrate. Just as the 11 Labs AI can't replicate laughter, you don't want to use ChatGPT to write something that is heartfelt. Some things must stay human. Your imperfection adds value. Your humanity is not a negative. Remember Kasparov's rage at Deep Blue? If you're spending more time fighting the AI than leading it, that's a signal for you to reset and figure out how to collaborate better.
So the rule is collaborate but never abdicate. Whether you're negotiating a merger or crafting a podcast, stay the CEO of the outcome. And remember, Kasparov didn't lose his passion for chess. He redirected it. If AI sucks the joy out of your work, ask, am I still the grandmaster here?
I like that. Now, let's wrap this up with how listeners can take these lessons into the wild.
We've covered a lot. My experience drafting legal contracts, Chris's journey producing this podcast with AI, and the iconic Deep Blue Kasparov match that taught us about human adaptability. And if there's one thread weaving all these stories together, it's that collaboration, not confrontation and adaptation, brings out the best in both humans and AI.
Right. As we've seen, human plus AI isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a workflow that genuinely elevates our abilities. AI can handle repetitive or brute force tasks while we inject the personal touch, strategic insight, and ethical oversight. That's exactly what Kasparov realized after his initial rage against Deep Blue. Defeat didn't mean giving up. It meant forming new, unbeatable human-machine teams.
And we're living that lesson right now by letting AI handle first drafts, routine research, and help us with editing. I can focus on legal strategy, just like Chris can spend his energy on creative direction for the podcast instead of staring at a blank page. It's a reminder that we're not being replaced. We're being amplified.
Still, we can't ignore the broader concerns. AI raises questions about bias, job displacement, and global competitiveness. You mentioned the junior associate who loses a chance to learn contract drafting. Or consider how countries investing in AI could leapfrog others. That's why it's so important to keep humans in the loop and to keep an eye on the ethical and societal dimensions.
Exactly. The point is, we need to adapt responsibly. That means being clear on who does what, using AI where it excels, and letting humans apply their empathy, creativity, and moral judgment. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a lawyer, a writer, or just someone trying to stay relevant in the age of AI, remember that synergy beats solo performance.
So if you're listening and wondering, how can I apply this? Here are a few practical calls to action. Define the AI's role. Pinpoint exactly which tasks AI can handle. Heavy lifting, brute force analysis, and which tasks require your unique human touch, like vision, emotional nuance, or ethical oversight. Iterate and prototype. Don't expect perfection right away. Use AI to generate drafts or prototypes, then refine quickly. This helps you explore new avenues you might never consider otherwise. Stay aware of implications. Keep an eye on how your AI usage affects learning opportunities for juniors, potential bias in data, and the broader social impact. Embrace adaptability. Be like Kasparov. View setbacks or AI defeats as chances to pivot. Humans are the best adapters in the universe.
And if you want more depth, go read about Kasparov's later take on advanced chess, or explore frameworks like those in the book Human Plus Machine. But always put your own experiences, context, and ethical considerations first. AI is powerful, but we, collectively, define how it's used.
That's it. This episode was an invitation to see how real people, like Sandra and I, are adapting and how you calibrate your adaptation to AI. We hope you found these stories relevant to your own situation, whether you're drafting contracts, writing code, or doing something entirely different.
And as always, if you've got your own stories of collaborating with AI, or maybe you have reservations or questions, reach out at Verlicity.ai. We'd love to hear how you're navigating the human plus AI landscape. And don't forget to subscribe to the Verlicity AI podcast. And please share this episode with your friends.
Until next time, I'm Cristian Worthington.
And I'm Sandra Giffin. Stay open-minded, stay curious, and collaborate responsibly with AI. And we'll see you soon on another episode of Verlicity AI.